Okay.
Welcome, LA Progressive friends, family, readers. Dick and I, Dick Price and Sharon Kyle, we're here from the LA Progressive, and we're going to be talking to Nadia Ahmad, who is a law professor based in Orlando, Florida, and fellow at the Rutgers Center for Security, Race, and Rights, and a PhD candidate at Yale University in Environmental Studies. She's the co-founder of Ceasefire 2024. She submitted an article to the LA Progressive, and we were just so happy to publish it. And it talks about the assault Jake Tapper didn't want you to see. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting. What is this all about? Nadia, can you tell our listeners a little bit about what this article focuses on?
Right, thank you. So the thrust of the article is about pointing out the issues with violence against women, and also the violence that they want you to see and the violence they want you to ignore. And so this was a really difficult article for me to write because it was about a personal assault that I underwent. I was attacked by three members of Laborers International and otherwise known as LAUNA, when I was at the DNC serving as a DNC delegate at the 2024 DNC convention in Chicago. And when they hit me, they hit me with a lot of force. They had used campaign signs because they wanted to pull away from a sign that I was holding with two other people that said "Stop arming Israel." We felt that if we were able to get our message across, that it could really resonate for those who were at the conference, and also for those who were watching. And so instead of listening and hearing our message, we were met with violence. And that tends to be a recurring theme, especially if you look at what's happening right now in Los Angeles and cities across the world, is that any time that Black and Brown people are bringing up issues that matter to them, they're silenced, shunned, and struck. And so this is not something that's unique to me. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this situation again is because at the moment that I was planning to be a part of this action, I really wasn't sure if I wanted to go through with it or not. But then from the corner of my eye, I saw the CNN tent. Or the CNN crew that was there on the corner. And I thought that for these past several years, they've been lying about the genocide in Gaza, and about so many other things in terms of covering it up. And so if nobody else saw it, at least the CNN crew would see that we were able to sneak in this large banner and really confront the optics of having this really well-coordinated multi-billion-dollar event. And in the end, the Democrats weren't even able to pull off the election.
Yes, yes.
So part of the story is pointing to Jake Tapper's hypocrisy. On the one hand, he wrote this very controversial book about the fact that his staff, his close staff, covered up the fact that he was physically and mentally declining, kept it from the public, and until it kind of burst out in public knowledge. And yet Jake Tapper was part of the CNN crew who saw you being beaten and said had nothing to say about that.
Can I just want to insert, he said his staff, and what we're talking about is President Biden's
Yeah.
staff. Jake Tapper has written a book called The Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. So go ahead, Nadia, if you want to respond to what Dick is talking about.
Yeah, so thank you, Sharon. And so in terms of what Dick has just mentioned, I think it's important to note is that the book is really hyped, is that it was really the inner circle within Biden that knew that he what was happening to him, and they weren't revealing it. And so I think that that's an assumption that has to be questioned, because it wasn't just the inner circle knew, the whole world knew. And anyone that was close and on the proximity would know that. And it wasn't just the inner circle; it was also the corporate media that were covering it up, because they were on this train that we needed to push forward President Biden as a candidate at all costs, and then and then they would make sure that there was no primary. And the other reason why we wanted to really bring up these issues at that time was because through the convention mechanism, it's possible that you could actually have an open convention and select a new candidate that could potentially have actually won the election at that point. And nobody, including Jake Tapper, were willing to really have that conversation. In fact, Liana Sharon and I were the only two DNC members at the time who had openly endorsed Marianne when she was running for president. And so there's a lot of, could have been or should have been that's happening. But at the time, Jake Tapper was part and parcel of exactly what the DNC wanted, even what Biden's inner circle had wanted.
So if I may, and you were talking about Marianne Williamson, who was also running for president at that time. So you and another delegate had endorsed Marianne. But what you're saying here is, in so many ways, this book, Jake Tapper's book about the original sin and President Biden's decline, it's hypocritical because, as you've stated, and I think as mostly anyone who watched that debate between President Biden and candidate Trump, anyone would know that Biden at the time was suffering from some kind of cognizant decline. So it wasn't just his insiders, and it wasn't just that one moment. There are many times over the last 2 years of his presidency where I, just a regular person, listening to him speak at press conferences and whatnot, I questioned, was he all there? But what Jake is doing is he is using this opportunity, now that we know that President Biden was clearly in decline. He's using this as an opportunity to write a book, to make money, and to sort of cloak and hide the fact that mainstream corporate media, they were just as involved in the cover-up as anybody else. And that is really highlighted by the fact that what happened to you was in clear view by CNN. And they didn't report anything about this while you were at the convention being accosted.
Yeah, and what was also really annoying to me was that even the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, along with the deputy campaign manager of the then Harris campaign, also saw it. In fact, they were sitting right next to the perpetrators, and they didn't do anything. All they did was look away. And I think this brings up other issues of like violence against women, and how it's acceptable against someone like me who's a woman of color. And this also is playing out right now on the other side of the country in New York, in the mayoral race. And so if you look at Andrew Cuomo's background, he had harassed several women. Like I heard somebody joking that it was a baker's dozen in terms of the number of women that had been harassed, and even in spite of that, he had resigned from his position and stepped down. At the time, his brother also lost his job at CNN for hiding information about it, and so now he's running very cavalier as if nothing has happened. And the Democratic Party, including the DNC, are part and parcel of that same cover up again, and allowing this whole process of the Me Too movement as if it never had happened in history. And I think that's why it's really important for people to kind of recognize and link these issues of violence and harassment, especially to what's happening right now in Los Angeles, in terms of the violent assaults that are happening against elected officials. This is why elections have consequences, and so we have to really rally and organize and not have a defeatist attitude, and recognize that even for me, someone who's a victim of political violence, it's important to really be engaged in coalition building, not just in my community but around the country as well, because we have to be able to tell our stories and what happened to us. And when I had first had first been struck, it was like you were kind of in the heat of the moment, and my goal had been just to hold up the sign for 1 or 2 minutes, and I figured somebody would snatch the sign away from us, but the security never came. And then I just felt something being hit on my head, and I just like my goal was just hold up the sign. Like I didn't think about, oh, I'm getting it. I was just hold up the sign. And it wasn't until I came back home, and it was actually that back to my hotel that I really started to feel the pain. It was actually like a few days later when I was in the actual DNC meeting that was held after the convention was over. It was a few hundred people, and there was really bright lights, and I realized that this isn't something normal that has happened, and so I went back home and I got I got neurological tests done, and I had irregular EEG reports, and I've also been diagnosed with having like epileptic activity within my brain, and so this wasn't some like small thing that happened to me. And then what the DNC did is didn't take responsibility, and then appointed one of the people who attacked me to its executive committee, and so that just shows you they aren't not only not holding him accountable, they're also elevating him and encouraging this type of violence.
Yeah, this is
Well, in a parallel way, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but I think Donald Trump took us back 4 or 5 big steps. I mean, he's a convicted and accused over decades of impropriety toward women, and yet more Americans would vote for him than for a woman. Um, and that's always seemed quite wrong. And that kind of opens the gate for others to be act inappropriately toward women. I agree. I mean, I think this is something that, yeah, what does Andrew Cuomo think he's doing, and what do the people of New York think they're doing by putting him first in the race?
so
And
I
I think like if you look back at Donald Trump, like he was a rapist,
Mhm.
and he also appointed a rapist to the Supreme Court. And I think that's something that we have to look at very clearly is, and we see that in all other aspects of the policies that have been built up in terms of women's rights, reproductive rights, and impacts relating to LGBTQ communities as well. Like today's actually the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, and I think we have to also kind of recognize that that hate doesn't have any space in our community. And what the GOP is really good about is taking a situation and really spinning it in a way that really distorts it. So, for example, with the Pulse nightclub shooting, they used it to really amplify anti-Muslim rhetoric. And if you remember, that was in June of 2016, right before the last presidential election where he had been elected. And so that type of fear mongering, what they're doing right now with immigrants, is also the same thing. It's like part and parcel of the way that they work. But I think we still need to hold the media accountable and demand transparency, and that they cover these issues fully and not distort them.
So as we've seen, it's not specifically directed at women, but this ICE crackdown on immigrants has a strong thread of cruelty in it. The administration delights showing these prisoners bent over, head shaved, being run down into a prison, and that's a point. I mean, they're pleased with that. They're happy with that, and they just yanked a senator, a distinguished senior senator from California, Alex Padilla, out of a press conference, a Department of Human Services press conference, knocked him to the ground, handcuffed him, roughed him up. Uh, I mean, and there's, Trump is forever saying, if people act out of line, Trump and his thugs, Tom Holman and Hickseth, that there'll be severe consequences, which means beatings. And if you see what the ICE are doing to the demonstrators here in California, it's repulsive.
I just wanted to make clear that regarding Trump's sexual improprieties, he was found liable for a sexual abuse case. The jury awarded E. Jean Carroll, the woman who accused him of this sexual abuse. She was awarded $5 million. So this was a civil case where the jury did find credible evidence that the president of the United States, at the time he wasn't the president, but he was elected to be president even after this news had come out. The rest of the country does not seem to be so bothered with a sexual predator or being elected to the highest office in the land, to Cuomo being considered to be mayor again after very solid allegations of sexual impropriety with Cuomo. And this violence, this wave of violence that we're seeing just now, breaking news, what Dick said, Alex Padilla, who is one of two California United States senators, thrown to the ground, just manhandled by FBI agents. I just want to ask you, what kind of solutions do you think we have available to us to put an end to this, to put the kibosh on this violence?
Well, I think that it's not a matter of like a way to end the violence. I think like this is either like a starting point or a tipping point of the violence, because it's not as if the protests that happened in LA were contained. They've actually spread like wildfire across the country. And so I think the most important thing to do is resist, and to not to be complacent as a part of this. And so I think it's important in whatever different spheres or sectors we're operating in is to make sure that we are resisting. So whether it's in the space of journalism, in the space of academia, in the space of political activism, coalition building in the courts, we really have to really engage more, because we can't just sit back and let Donald Trump run this country, because he could very well, or somebody from the GOP could win again in 2028. And so we've taken a lot for granted, because we haven't stepped up in ways that we should. And I think we also have to recognize the political realities is that change isn't going to happen over a short time horizon. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of people to make it happen. And all of a sudden the change can happen in ways that we don't expect it. And I think that will really require a level of determination.
Well, we thank you for being so brave in writing this piece that you have admitted was difficult for you to write. You were assaulted, and you're supposed to have been, with the way that the media paints it, the good guys. You know, we have typically framed this issue as, Republicans bad, Democrats good, but it appears that these problems go much deeper than the party. This violent streak and this political violence is on the rise. And I think that all of us have a responsibility to take action. So Nadia Ahmad, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we close?
No, thank you. And I hope you all stay safe.
Same to
Great.
you, Nadia. Thank you.
We'll talk to you again in the future. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.